Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the real reasons why everyone is moving to Mexico. Now, I have a whole list of actual reasons that you might not have heard of in previous videos or episodes or on other channels. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be covering a lot of things that, well, you probably heard of before and some that you haven't. The first thing I want to discuss is the fact that, well, Mexico is extremely modern. In fact, just as modern and first world as wherever you're coming from, or in many cases, even more so. As you guys are already seeing in this video, as I'm walking around here in this area that's called Plaza Patria, here in the Zapopan neighborhood of Guadalajara, Jalisco, that, you know, we have modern buildings, Walmarts, a train, and so much more that you're going to be seeing as we're walking around this neighborhood. And, you know, you're probably going to be seeing in future episodes as, and again, I show you guys, you know, more and more of this wonderful city. Some of you guys know me from, you know, my older videos where I usually film in Mérida, Yucatan. And even though that city is smaller and also it's growing and there are a lot of modern amenities and luxuries and all that stuff in that city, I tend to live in a more of a barrio, you know, just a regular working class neighborhood. And many times as I'm walking around the historical center or I'm walking around certain areas, a lot of people just think that, well, Mexico is still a third world country. But the reality is that, you know, this that you're looking at right now is also in Mérida, Yucatan, and is also in many cities around Mexico, if not most cities or all cities in Mexico at the moment. Guadalajara just happens to be the second most important city in all of Mexico, right behind Mexico City, which is the capital. Like I was saying earlier, we are in the Plaza Patria area, and it's a very modern mall with a lot of modern comforts and modern grocery stores and just stores in general. In fact, if you ever walk around a modern Mexican mall, you start seeing how much better the malls and the infrastructure are taken care of here. Where, for example, right now in the USA, you know, we have had tons of malls all over the place. But nowadays, most of these malls are just abandoned shells of what they used to be. Whereas you go to any mall in Mexico these days and they are filled to the brim, you know, with stores and people, and they're just bustling economic hubs. And not only are there fancy malls, but they got strip malls, they got all kinds of businesses. Again, the economy is booming out here. Something that we can't really say about, you know, our own countries where we come from at the moment. So not only is Mexico extremely modern by today's standards, but it has a lot of the things that you wish you had. And not only you wish you had, but that you wish you had access to. Because that's a major component to all of this. Sure, you know, gentrification is happening all over the world, and you're seeing, you know, again, in your own backyard where you might have, you know, certain areas that just are not accessible to you or, you know, certain people of a lower income level. But that's not the case out here in Mexico. Most of Mexico and most places in Mexico are accessible to everyone and anyone, no matter what their income levels are. So not only is Mexico extremely modern, in fact, in some cases, you know, more modern and up to date than what you're going to find in the USA these days, but the economic opportunities are falling off the trees, as they like to say. There are so much economic opportunities to be had and to be taken advantage of by the typical Mexican. Whether you're working for somebody, whether you're starting your own business, whether you are now making more money and you have more to spend, whether your Mexican peso is now all of a sudden stronger and gives you more value, therefore, you know, you can buy even more with what you make, and so on and so forth. Most Mexicans these days are experiencing a giant boom in their own personal economies, and now they have a stronger purchasing power, and now they can really, you know, take advantage of the fruits of their own labors. Therefore, the economy is booming in every sense of the word, because obviously if people are making more money, well, they're also going to be spending more money. And for some Americans out there, some immigrants that come to Mexico, now they are going to all of a sudden feel poor while they're walking around or shopping around and just doing their daily to-dos out here in Mexico, especially when they are in certain neighborhoods and they see, again, just typical Mexicans that can afford to live a much better life than what you can afford to live in. One of the things that I noticed about being out here in Guadalajara, which I noticed also in Merida, but it's only in certain areas and certain neighborhoods up in the north of the city, but here in Guadalajara it seems that it's a lot more prevalent. And the fact is that most Mexicans can afford a lot more luxuries and comforts, and a lot of these things that, well, they're just not accessible to you anymore in the USA or Canada or wherever you're from, just simply because of the hyperinflation and so many other factors that, well, they just don't allow you to afford life in your own country anymore. And now you're seeing something that's kind of like the opposite here in Mexico, where for the longest time, a typical Mexican might not have been able to afford, getting their Starbucks all the time, or having a fancy car, or, just having a fancier lifestyle. And now you're starting to see that, well, now many Mexicans, and in fact, more and more Mexicans each and every day, can afford these things. Now, again, you're going to be seeing in many videos, going forward, that we're going to be visiting all parts of the city, and everyone is on a different economic scale, and not everyone can afford, to have their Starbucks every day or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, we're starting to see a lot more Mexicans that can afford these things. You guys have already seen in a few videos that I've already recorded that even if we're just going to a very fancy coffee house, things are actually a lot more affordable than they are in your home city in the USA these days. So obviously it goes without saying, if you are coming here as an immigrant and you're making dollars or euros or whatever other currency you have, it allows you to obviously to have a stronger purchasing power, meaning that you can afford more with less. Well, then of course, you're going to also see that you're going to be getting more bang for your buck. I know a lot of people are out there complaining that the dollar keeps losing value against the peso, which is true, and that they're not getting as much bang for their buck as they used to. But again, let's not forget that you're still getting a lot of bang for your buck. No matter what currency you have, again, US dollar, Canadian dollar, euro, whatever it is, no matter how much value it's lost, it hasn't lost all of its value yet. And the Mexican peso still hasn't, reached its full potential. So therefore, in the time being, if you're still making dollars or whatever it is you're making out there, then you're going to be able to afford a better lifestyle out here than whatever it is you're living in the USA. You guys already know that you're going to be paying, in the USA, $1,400, $1,800, $2,000 or more, just for a regular apartment or a home or whatever it is. We're out here for that same price, you can almost afford a mansion. Now, of course, I'm being a little hyperbolic here, but the reality is that, just in rents alone, Mexico has many places like where I live at the moment, in which I'm paying around $350 for a 2-bedroom home. Yes, I used to pay, a little under $300 not that long ago, and because of the loss in value of the dollar, I'm now paying $50 more in less than 6 months. But it's still $350. Let's not forget that. And so that goes with everything else. It doesn't matter what kind of housing you're looking into. You're going to be paying significantly less and be getting a lot more than whatever it is you can afford back in the USA. And not just housing, but also other expenses like utilities, food, entertainment, transportation, and I could go on and on and on. Again, as I've discussed in further detail in many of my episodes, of course, if you want to live exactly the same as you lived in the USA, or even better than you lived in the USA, and you do not want to change your ways in how you spend your money, then yeah, you're probably going to be paying the same or more than you're paying in the USA. But if you just want to live a normal, regular, humble lifestyle that the typical Mexican lives out here, then trust me, you're going to be able to afford to live very, very well, something that you're just not going to be able to do in the USA. Again, for some of you guys that are new out here and don't know my story, I came to Mexico 6 years ago with only $1,500 left in my pocket. And 6 years in the future, it's not like I make a lot more than what I used to make. I make around $1,000, $1,500 every single month. And yet, not only am I able to pay for all of my bills and live in a house and support a family and all the other stuff, but I'm able to even go on vacation, like as you're seeing right now. I'm here in Guadalajara on vacation, and I live in Merida, Yucatan, which is on the other side of the country. And I do all this without putting myself in debt. I pay as I go. So if I can do it, so can you. Now, whether or not you want to do it, that's up to you. Again, I don't live that fancy lifestyle. I live a very, very humble and I live a very frugal lifestyle. Again, like a typical Mexican. And therefore, I'm able to afford a lot of these other luxuries that some of you guys cannot afford. Most of you guys out there cannot afford to go on vacation without going heavily in debt. And it's simply because, well, you don't want to let go of some of your luxuries, like drink your Starbucks every day. By the way, I know I keep bringing Starbucks, but I feel like that is, something of a status symbol or a symbol of the times. But you can insert, whatever luxury you want in place of Starbucks, okay? It's just the first thing that comes to my mind as I'm talking and making these videos. I know I make it look a lot easier than what it is, okay? But it actually is a little bit difficult, to make these videos. But with that said, I'm out here in Mexico in a foreign country as an immigrant, and I'm doing what I love. I get to do what I love. As opposed to as if I'm in the USA these days, I cannot do what I love. I have to do something I hate, okay, in order to just pay my bills. We're out here, I get to do what I love, and sure, I can't afford to live, like the Rockefellers out there, but hey, I can live my life. I can afford to live a wonderful and amazing and fulfilling life and have a better quality of life to go along with it. Let's not forget that. For some people out there in the USA, they already forgot what a good quality of life even is anymore. In fact, some of you guys have never even experienced that. But out here in Mexico, it is a daily thing. Your quality of life will increase exponentially simply because, well, you'll be able to afford everyday things now with whatever money you make. Again, if I can make it on $1,500 a month, and you are out there at the very least making what I make or even more, then trust me, you're going to be able to live a very good life. But that's up to you and what your personal expenses are. To piggyback off of the quality of life topic here, well, again, on top of the fact that, you will be able to afford a better lifestyle, well, guess what? You're also going to be able to afford healthcare. You're also going to be able to afford medicine. You're going to be able to afford so many things that, well, you just don't have access to these days in the USA anymore. As we've discussed multiple times on this channel, your mental health will increase. Your personal fitness will increase. You're just going to all around feel better, and not just feel better, but a renewed sense of life. You're going to now be able to really go out there and smell the roses, as opposed to where in the USA someone tells you to smell the roses and you're going to tell them to shove it where it don't shine. And that's another thing too. Most Mexicans are very, very nice. Most Mexicans are extremely welcoming. Most Mexicans, again, they have these, values, and they have these morals and these things that, well, they just almost don't even exist in the USA anymore. This is a much better place to raise a family. It's just the truth. And so since most Mexicans can raise a family, they can afford to raise a family, they themselves have a better structure as to where they're building these values and these morals, whether they go to church or not, whatever it is that they believe in, it doesn't matter. There's just something about the Mexican culture that makes sure that most Mexicans out there are amazing human beings, which is something that, for some of you guys, you don't really get to see in the USA anymore, or wherever you're from anymore. In fact, when you come to Mexico, you're pleasantly surprised by how nice everyone actually is. And when you do go back to the USA, because some of you guys come to Mexico and you have to go back to the USA, it almost hits you like a brick wall as to how horrible the people are in the USA these days. And again, it's not to the fault of the American people. I get it. I'm American. I used to come from the USA, and I know how things are over there. And it's very hard, to have a smile on your face, to be a good person, whatever it is, just simply because, well, everything is just no bueno. Everything just kind of sucks, for lack of a better description. But when you come to Mexico, and the typical Mexican, doesn't matter what their income level is or their economic status, most of them can afford a very high quality of life. Obviously that puts you in a better mood. The fact that you have access to just about everything, whether it's better food, better healthcare, better education for your kids, the ability to raise your family, in a really, really good environment. And I can go on and on. And in fact, that's why I'm making these videos, because there's just so much to talk about when it comes to, how Mexico is just so amazing, and why so many foreigners, so many immigrants are now flooding into Mexico, that I have to make multiple videos talking about all this, because it's just too much. It's just too much. And it also goes to show you like how much we've actually lost in our own home countries. Another reason a lot of people are moving to Mexico, which is not something a lot of people want to talk about, but it's just the truth. And some people, they might even be, hating on me or not happy that I'm even bringing this up, but this is the truth. And the fact is that, there's a lot of people that are moving to Mexico that are simply doing it looking for love. There's a lot of Americans out there. There's a lot of people coming from the first world, okay? Especially men that are looking for a wife. They're looking for a life partner. And that's something they just cannot find in their home countries anymore. I'm not going to say that it just doesn't exist anymore in our own, cultures out there. But the reality is that they are very, very few and far in between. And it's almost like finding a needle in a haystack these days. But out here in Mexico, it couldn't be any further from the truth. And not just Mexico. There's many countries around the world and in which this is a very true scenario. And the reality is that there's a lot of people, especially young males, young men, that are simply leaving their home countries for better horizons out there. And a lot of them, they want a girlfriend, they want a wife, they want a life partner that is going to be exactly that, okay? Not, something, I don't even want to get into that whole topic, okay? But in fact, I might get into that topic in a future episode, but right now, I just want to cover the fact that there are a lot of people out there, again, men and women, okay? Let's not, get it confused. It's just that there are more men, obviously, that are doing this, but they're leaving their home country because, they're still young, they want to start a family. And obviously, a lot of these morals and values that we were just talking about earlier, they're just not a thing in the USA anymore, or whatever first world country you want to talk about here, And so they're coming to countries like Mexico in order to find that life partner, that wife, that husband, whatever it is, that is going to hold those values, that is going to work like a team in order to not just, live together and have a wonderful and amazing life together, but also, to start a family. And, again, starting a family is a very difficult and complicated thing. And these days, you can't even think about doing those things in the USA or whatever country you're from. But something like Mexico, are you kidding me? In Mexico, it is expected for you to start a family and for you to have a, actual strong relationship with your partner, a mutual relationship with your partner. For some of you guys that don't know my full story, I came out here to Mexico as a single man. And, I have had, my own situations back in the USA where by the time I got here to Mexico, I was not looking for love. I was not looking for a partner. I wasn't looking for anything. And so I just came out here. I wanted to live my life, do my thing, enjoy life, okay? And along the way, guess what? I found Christian, which is my beautiful wife, and I couldn't be any happier. Now, again, some of you guys, don't know the full story, but, we were dating, everything was going great and wonderful, and I just needed help to get my papers. And when I asked her, hey, can you help me? Can we get married so I can get my papers? And she said, yes, of course I'll help you, but on one condition. We actually get married for real, and we make this a serious relationship, and you already know the rest. And all this took place around 5 years ago, and as of January of this year, we have now been happily married for 4 years, which I never thought in a million years that I would be in a relationship for that long, let alone happily married. And our own relationship just keeps getting better and better and better as time goes on, which is even more rare. Because for anyone out there that, has have found or has love, or whatever it is over there in the USA, Canada, wherever you're from, a lot of times it doesn't work like that at all. You start off, very heavily in love, and before you know it, as the years go on, well, you fall out of love, and things just deteriorate to a point where you guys are getting divorced. And out here, it couldn't be any further from the truth. Sure, I'm not going to say it's all peachy and wonderful all the time. Just like any other relationship, we have our troubles and all that good stuff. But it seems that every time that we have any kind of bump in the road, it just makes everything more solid and stronger and better. And a lot of it has to do just the fact that she, just like me, we grew up in Latino households. Again, my parents are Cuban, she is Mexican. And so we have, certain values and certain morals and just certain expectations that we want out of a partner and out of, our relationship. And, well, we get them. I do my part, she does her part, and we both do our part together. And, again, the relationship just keeps getting better and better. And for a lot of people out there, they're looking for that. It's not like they're looking for, a supermodel or whatever it is. By the way, my wife can also be a model, but that's not what I'm talking about here. The fact that out here in Mexico, that whole idea of finding true love, an actual relationship and a partnership, the whole thing that everyone out there is always looking for, that holy grail that everyone feels these days is almost impossible to even find or achieve. Well, listen, it's alive and well out here in Mexico and in most of Latin America and in Asia and in many countries around the world. So with that said, that's why a lot of people, a lot of Americans especially, are moving to Mexico, and it's simply to find love. Listen, I got tons of friends, that are in their 30s and they live in the USA, and they are on dating apps in the USA and on dating apps here in Mexico. And they talk to me all the time about what their options are in the USA as opposed to what their options are in Mexico. And it's like, out of 100 candidates in the USA, they might find one that could be a potential good partner, a potential, actual match. And, as they start, talking to that person or going on a date with that person, immediately they realize, oh my God, this person has more red flags than I can even count. And when it comes to, finding a partner in Mexico, basically out of 100 matches that they have, well, 90 of them are potential, good matches. And as they start talking to them, sure, there's a red flag here or there. No one's perfect, but you cannot even compare, to what you're going to, what they find in the USA these days. And again, this is just, from my own personal experience of my own friends that are dealing with this situation at the moment, that they're in their 20s or 30s. And again, it's one disaster after another to the point where they don't even want to date anymore in the USA. But as they talk to, Mexicans, as they talk to other girls that are in other parts of the world, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, what am I even doing? Why am I even still looking in the USA? So for a lot of people out there, believe it or not, their main reason for coming to Mexico or moving abroad is to find a wife, to find that partner, to find, that, again, holy grail that is just not existent in the USA anymore. So you got to remember, there's many reasons why many people are moving out here. Now, I know there's a lot of people in the audience that have found that holy grail, that have found their amazing wife partner in the USA or Canada or wherever they're from. And, they're raising their family the way they want to raise their family. But now that comes with another set of problems where as they're trying to raise their family with their family values in the USA, well, guess what? That's just not acceptable in today's America or today's Canada or today's Europe anymore. And so a lot of them have to move to Mexico. They have to uproot their whole family with the kids and the whole thing, and they have to move to a country like Mexico where their family values and how they want to grow and raise their own family are more aligned out here in Mexico than they are in the USA. I don't want to get into all the details of this. Some of you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, where, most people these days, they're afraid to even put their kids in a school in the USA or whatever it is. Again, like I said, interact with just day-to-day life. Where out here in Mexico, they feel like the values that they're going to get taught in school out here or just on a regular day-to-day basis are more in line and in tune with the way they want to raise their family. On top of that, it's a lot safer out here, believe it or not. Yeah, I know, I said it. Yeah, Mexico in many cases is a lot safer than many places in the USA these days. And you know this, especially if you're trying to raise a family or you are just trying to live your own life. Forget raising a family. But many parts of the USA these days are extremely dangerous for many reasons. And it's just going to get worse and worse before it gets better. Where Mexico, well, it's a complete opposite. Sure, Mexico was a dangerous place in the past. And in fact, there are many places in Mexico that are still dangerous. But those places that are dangerous in Mexico, that's nowhere where you are going, okay? That's nowhere where you are going to be. Again, you guys have seen from multiple videos that I've done on this channel over and over again that it's a lot safer out here than anything you're going to find where you're at. Now, again, as I've said, right here in Guadalajara, most of the places that you're going to be seeing, they're going to be safe. They're very safe. Obviously there are many, many places in Guadalajara, just like any other major city, where they're going to be dangerous. But what do I mean by dangerous? Well, sure, if I'm walking around with a camera in certain neighborhoods, well, yeah, of course I'm going to get jacked, meaning, they're probably going to take that camera or take my wallet or take my phone. There's going to be a lot of petty crime. But in no case or in no scenario is anyone going to, again, end my life just simply for a wallet or for no reason at all. There are many places in the USA these days where you're just minding your own business. You're in a Walmart parking lot, about to do your shopping. And before you know it, you're in a hospital. Someone shot you and you don't even know who or where or why or what. And again, it's not just that. It doesn't matter where you are. Violence is everywhere. Where in Mexico, it couldn't be any further from the truth. Like I said, the worst case scenario that's probably going to happen to you, you're in a really bad neighborhood, all right, and somebody tries to rob you. And you might get, a few bruises, and that's about it. But no one's going to end your life, over a phone or a wallet or whatever it is. And so obviously if you're raising a family and you got kids and, safety is a major concern, well, you don't have to worry about that here. In fact, you're going to see multiple times where you're going to see kids that get out of school and they can walk home safely without any kind of problem or walk to school in the morning. Where again, in many major cities in the USA, that's not a possibility anymore. There's just danger lurking everywhere and all kinds of degrees of danger. And that's not the case out here in Mexico. It's just not. For the typical Mexican living in, mostly, safe areas, well, you're very rarely going to see any kind of, real danger. Again, as long as you're practicing common sense, you're practicing situational awareness, you are, again, aware of your surroundings and all that good stuff, well, you really don't got anything to worry about. But in the USA, it doesn't matter how paranoid you are, how much situational awareness you have, how much, you try to take care, of yourself. You might find yourself in a really bad situation. And again, it might not even have anything to do with somebody trying to steal your wallet or jack your car or whatever it is. It could just be a police officer that might pull you over. That police officer might have a bad day, and before you know it, now you're having a really bad day and a life-changing scenario where I don't even want to get into all that, but you already know. Most people are deathly afraid of the police in the USA, and for good reason. It's not like they have a really good track record these days. And the fact that, again, they have an excessive amount of power and authority to basically do whatever it is they want to you without any kind of retribution, without any kind of justice on your part. They can, again, arrest you and do all kinds of horrible things to you. And it's now up to you to prove your innocence. And even after you prove your innocence, well, it doesn't mean like that person that did you wrong is going to face any kind of consequences. Where in Mexico, it couldn't be any further from the truth. Of course, there are police in Mexico that are extremely corrupt, but none of them are going to put you in jail for a very long time. None of them are going to end your life. None of them are going to do the things that they do to you in the USA. In fact, the most that a police officer in Mexico is going to do is shake you down and make you give them a few bucks. That's it. So basically they're going to shake you down for some money, okay? And that's it. It's as simple as that. In fact, that's why you see there's a lot of Mexicans that are more afraid of the police out here in Mexico as opposed to, just someone out there trying to steal their wallet or, do whatever other petty crime. Because, well, the police, they have a gun and, they have, the means to scare you to, comply with, giving them some sort of money and being left alone. But again, that is in the minority. And as you guys have seen, from the videos that I've recorded here in Guadalajara and in Mérida, there are cops all over the place and none of them are shaking you down. Where you're going to find a lot of these shakedowns are basically out in the rural areas, out in the boonies, out in the middle of nowhere, or, in certain places like Mexico City, where it's notorious, for the cops to behave badly. But again, it's as simple as I'm going to shake you down for 500 pesos, 1,000 pesos, which is the equivalent of like $25, $30 or $50, $60. That's it. That is it. Are you kidding me? If I was in the USA and that's all I had to worry about from a police officer, I would not be afraid of the police, and neither would you. But the fact is that, they can end your life, and they're probably going to get a medal for it, and everyone's going to now all of a sudden think the worst of you just simply because, there had to be a reason, for that cop to do what they did to XYZ person. And again, I don't want to get into all that. I can go off on rants on, power and authority and all this other stuff and this overreach and the tyranny that is happening in the USA these days and Canada and other places. But again, it's that freedom that I talk about all the time on this channel. Well, that's a lot of reasons why a lot of people are moving out here as well. Just like many, many moons ago, many decades ago, many people left their tyrannical governments in other parts of the world and they went to the USA for freedom and a better life. Well, guess what? Now a lot of Americans are leaving the USA for freedom and a better life. Kind of ironic, don't you think? And so, to piggyback off of that, the reason that there's a major difference in between how all this is handled here as opposed to in the USA is because a lot of Mexicans, they make sure to stand up for their rights. They're constantly challenging authority, challenging government. They do not believe or care much about government like they do in the USA. Most Mexicans, they have to figure it out on their own, and the government isn't there to save anyone's day. Not just the government, but the banks or any other kind of corporate or authority figure structure out there. So most Mexicans, since they cannot and will not rely on any of these authority figures to dictate how they're going to live their lives, well, they're constantly protecting those rights. If more Americans would stand up for their rights, we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in today. But again, when you come out here to Mexico, you see a whole population of Mexicans that not only know their rights, but they make sure that their rights do not get trampled on. And if they do, because it happens, whenever you give authority a little bit too much power, well, they're gonna try and try to stomp away at some of your rights. Well, and guess what? Whenever that happens out here, most Mexicans, they push back, and they push back extremely hard. So since Mexicans are constantly, fighting for their rights, defending their rights, protecting their rights, and upholding those rights, well, then, guess what? Most of the population is very well versed into what authority can and cannot do. And on top of that, most authority out here does not have the power and the ability to enforce all kinds of insane things like they do in the USA. So again, this is a whole conversation, and I'm not going to be, spending too much more time on this. But the reality is that it's part of the culture. Part of the Mexican culture, okay, is to stand up against government and tyrannical authority. It's just part of way of life out here. They're very rebellious, and they do not like to be told what to do, let alone being told what to do by some idiot that doesn't know anything. Out here, authority, where, let's just say a cop, they have the ability to be able to think on their feet and do what is right. Not do what the law says all the time. No, sometimes the law isn't right in particular scenarios, and so they have to go with what is right. On top of that, they have very, very limited power into what they can and cannot do. So that goes a very long way as well into why you see a lot of times that people complain about the cops don't do anything out here. Well, it's because they don't have the power to do anything out here. And again, most people complain about how much power the police have in the USA, and a lot of it has to do with, the fact that, well, they have all these rules and regulations and laws and all this other stuff that, well, they can use against you at any moment's time. And so, again, out here in Mexico, most Mexicans, their culture is to push back on any kind of unfair authority. And they have laws and the Constitution and their own Bill of Rights and all these other things on their side that has not been deteriorated like it has in the USA. So therefore, not only do they know their rights, but they have the ability to be able to not just push back, but to actually get real results. And that is part of their culture, okay? That it really is. It's not just the fact that they have, the family values, the morals, that they're nice and kind and all this other stuff. Again, they're really nice and kind up until a certain point. And then once you reach that point, well, you're going to find out how mean and how rebellious and how angry they can actually get. That's why most Mexicans out there, they're very welcoming and receptive to immigrants and foreigners out there. But the minute that an immigrant or foreigner starts to come out here and tell them to put the music down, or, hey, you can't be doing XYZ in this neighborhood anymore. Hey, I don't like the way that you do this. Hey, can you speak English? Whatever it is that you're doing that's, now all of a sudden trampling on their rights, on their quality of life, well, now they're going to really turn against you, and they're not going to like it very much. And we're going to talk more about this in a future episode, all right, because this seems to be an ongoing problem out here these days where there's a lot of Americans that are coming out here and they're behaving badly. And, a lot of people out there are saying that all Mexicans are turning against Americans, and that couldn't be any further from the truth, okay? The reality is that they're turning against a certain group of individuals out there that are coming out here with a very entitled attitude. And, well, again, if the Mexican culture isn't going to put up with their own government, with their own police, with their own authority figures, what makes you think that they're going to be putting up with you? So you're starting to see a major pushback to make sure, that their culture is extremely protected, all right, and that it doesn't go anywhere, let alone because of a foreigner that's coming out here and doesn't like Mexican music or whatever it is that they're complaining about. If they don't like it, they can go home. And so for me, that's one of the things I really love about the Mexican culture. Obviously, there's many things about the Mexican culture that, many YouTubers or many people have talked about, and I don't want to rehash all that. I'm talking about a part of the culture that most people don't talk about, and it's the fact that, again, they're the nicest people in the world, but don't be stepping on their toes, all right? Because, again, some of the best boxers and fighters and some of the most, rebellious people out there on the planet are Mexican. Let's not forget that. So don't give them a reason to, show you exactly, how mean and angry they can be. Because if you come out here to Mexico, you have to show respect for the people. It's as simple as that. And if you don't, well, trust me, they don't have to respect or care about you. So the fact that, most Mexicans out here, have a strong culture, when it comes to, protecting their way of life and, just the way that they are. That's a major, component as to why I love it out here so much. Now, of course, there are other things about Mexican culture that everyone loves, the food, the people, the pyramids, the mestizo Indian culture. I can go on and on. There's like a gazillion things. The music, whatever. There's so many things. But another thing that, again, a lot of people just don't really know about until they move out here is how Americanized Mexicans are. And what do I mean by Americanized? Well, number one, if you come out here and you say that you are an American, most Mexicans are not going to take too kindly to that. Now, again, Mexicans are nice and, they're welcoming and they understand that, we're dumb gringos and we consider ourselves Americans no matter where we go on the planet. But guess what? They also consider themselves Americans. In fact, everyone that's in North America, South America, Central America, well, we're all Americans. Everyone's an American. Now, you are from the United States of America. You might be from Canada. You might be from Ecuador. You might be from, Brazil, Argentina. It doesn't matter, but everyone's an American. And guess what? Mexicans are also American. So when you come out here and you say that you're an American, again, most of them are just gonna, brush it off. But, deep down inside, they don't like that. They don't like the fact that you are the only ones that consider yourselves Americans, because guess what? They consider themselves Americans as well. And what do I mean by that? Well, again, you got to remember the close proximity to the USA that Mexico has. In fact, they share a border, one of the biggest borders on the planet. Not just that, but there's a lot of Mexicans out there that still argue to this day that a lot of the land in the USA from the West was actually stolen from Mexico. I don't want to get into that whole thing, all right? But, you can see it on the map. Places like California, okay? Nevada, okay? Nevada literally means snow, okay? All right, and I could go on and on, all right? New Mexico, all right? All these places at one point belonged to Mexico. And because of, things that happened in the past, well, the USA is now proud owner of those lands. Now, again, I don't want to get into all that. Like I said, there's a lot of Mexicans that still to this day consider all of that land stolen from them. And, again, a lot of Americans, say that they want it fair and square. But again, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the fact that, even the immigrants that are in the USA these days, all right, a lot of the people in the USA these days are also Mexican. And not only are they Mexican, in fact, I don't know what the exact numbers are. I think like 33% of all immigrants are Mexican or something like that. Or of all Americans are Mexicans. I don't know what the number is. But there's a large majority of Americans, people in the United States of America that are of Mexican descent in one shape, form, or another. And not all of them crossed the Rio Grande. There's a lot of them that were born in the USA. In fact, there's a lot of Mexicans that, well, they were in New Mexico or California when it was still Mexico, all right? But that's another story for another day. The point I'm making is, okay, that just like in the USA, we love things like tacos and burritos and so much of Mexican culture. Well, guess what? Mexicans love American culture as well. And that's like a major component as well to life out here, where as an American moving to Mexico, the main difference that you're probably going to be encountering, that's the most difficult thing to kind of overcome for a lot of you guys, is just speaking Spanish. But as I've shown you guys in my videos, or you guys can see by just exploring Mexico on your own, that not only are there Walmarts and Costco's and KFC's and Burger King and McDonald's and rock and roll music, and I can go on, but there is a major influence of USA, American culture in Mexico. Because if the USA was able to export all of that culture all around the world, well, what makes you think that it didn't get exported right next door to our neighbors? So that's another thing too. As an American, once you start living out here in Mexico, you're going to quickly realize that there's a lot of things from back home that are also here. You're going to find burgers and hot dogs and pizza and rock and roll and NFL football, Mexican football league, baseball, and I can go on and on. Again, in fact, maybe you guys down there in the comment section down below, if you're still watching this video, you guys can go on ahead and leave, what kind of influence, surprised you about living in Mexico. What things that you found in Mexico that are the same as back home. For me, it was things like football. The fact that a lot of Mexicans love NFL football. In Guadalajara, they love, Mexican football. They got their own Mexican football league, and I could go on and on. I'm not talking about soccer. That's another thing, all right? Yeah, I still call it soccer, okay? I'm from the USA, all right? We don't really play soccer, all right? We play American football, all right? And baseball and other sports, okay? But the point I'm making is that there's a lot of similarities. In fact, you're going to find out there are going to be more similarities than there are things that they're not similar. Sorry, my English is not so good. I couldn't find the actual word there. But the point I'm making is that Mexico is actually a lot more similar than what you might be expecting it to be. Of course, Mexico, it's its own country, its own culture, its own everything. But there's a lot of things that you're going to find very familiar about life out here that you're going to love very much, besides all of the things that I just mentioned in this video. So guys, with all that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I want to give a big shout out to all my members, all my patrons, every single one of you guys out there that helps contribute to the show in one shape, form, or another, whether you're buying a t-shirt, or whether you're sending a super chat or a $5 donation or nothing at all. Even if you're just watching the video all the way through, you're watching an ad or a couple of ads, or you're leaving a thumbs up, or you're sharing these videos, whether it's with a friend or an enemy or a frenemy, or even leaving a comment down below with whatever. It doesn't matter what comment you leave. Trust me, everything helps. And I want to give a super extra special shout out to all of you guys that helps in every single little way possible. You guys are the real heroes out there. And so with all that being said, guys, I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope you guys enjoy all the videos that I make on this channel. And if you do, please go on ahead and check out some more videos that I have made about my trip out here in Guadalajara, or again, things that I talk about or show you in Mérida, Yucatan, or other parts of Mexico as I've traveled around, and I'm going to be traveling even more as time goes on. But with all that being said, guys, you already know the deal. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon. But more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.